The wind howled over the high plateau of Elethis like an old animal that refused to quiet. Its claws of cold air scratched at the steep stone ridges and rushed through the narrow paths until everything, rock, sky, and breath, seemed to sing the same sad note. On that plateau stood the small graveyard of the field healers, a place marked by simple pillars of gray crystal that glowed when touched by rain. Kaelri knelt between two of those pillars. Her long green cloak, heavy with water pressed against the muddy ground. She did not care. Her eyes rested only on the names carved into the crystal. Kaelri had been strong all her life, or so the elders told her when she took her healer's oath. But no strength prepared her for the notice that arrived 10 days earlier. Refugee shuttle. XS-27 lost in orbital assault. No survivors. Inside that shuttle were her 5-year-old twins, Taline and Sorel, sent ahead so she could finish duty at the field hospital. The words burned like acid into her mind, and every night since then she woke expecting to hear their soft voices calling for water or a lullaby. No voices came. The night stayed empty. The cradle in her quarters stayed untouched. She rose too, her feet with slow care, as if any sudden move might shatter what little remained of her heart. The crystal pillars sensed her touch and brightened. Thin threads of blue light ran across their surface, forming the twins' names in gentle, shifting script. She whispered those names, pressing each syllable to her lips like a promise. Around her, the gravesite lay silent except for the rain and wind. The other healers kept their distance, knowing grief was sometimes a private language. A memory drifted in. Taline chasing a flutter moth across the courtyard, laughing when it landed on her nose. Sorel standing on tiptoe to give the moth a leaf. Their laughter had felt louder than the whole planet. Kaelri's face tightened. She placed the first flower crest at the base of Talien's pillar, then the second at Sorel's. The petals stuck to the wet crystal, folding inward as if bowing. She tried to speak a blessing, but no voice came out, only a thin breath of steam in the cold air. Beyond the graveyard, the sky flashed pale green. Distant thunder rolled, the aftersound of ion cannons still firing far above, where the Varn, Dominion ships patrolled the ruins of the failed evacuation. Even in defeat, they stayed to remind Elethis who held the upper hand. Kaelri felt the tremor of each rumble in her ribs. The war had taken many things, cities, forests, oceans of knowledge, but in that moment it was only two small faces that mattered. She knelt again and pressed her forehead to the wet earth. In the Zeran way of mourning, the mourner shared one, breath with the soil. Believing that life returned to life through the ground itself, she inhaled until her lungs ached. Then exhaled into the dirt, giving away the hope she had guarded. Rain gathered at her hairline and dripped down. When she finally stood, her knees shook. The wind tugged at her cloak as if asking her to leave. Across, the same star system, far from the storm and the graves, the Terran exploration vessel Dauntless Mercy coasted through a graveyard of its own. Metal shards, cracked hull plates, and scorched escape pods drifted in the quiet darkness. Captain Jared Holt leaned over the shoulder of his sensor officer, brows knit. The sensors had picked up a faint double pulse, almost lost among static. 2 life signs, weak but steady, inside a sealed cryopod marked XS-27. Jared's jaw tightened. "Children," he murmured. The bridge crew exchanged uncertain looks. Relations with the Zirans stood on thin glass after months of border clashes. Rescuing their offspring without clearance might invite trouble, but Jared's eyes never left the frozen green waveform on the screen. He had hauled miners from collapsed tunnels, traders from solar flares, even scavengers from their own failed heists. A life was a life. He gave the order. Prepare a retrieval shuttle. Quiet channel. Move. Robotic arms reached out from the human ship, guiding the broken pod into a sterile bay. Engineers hurried to stabilize the cryogenic systems, voices low and careful. Inside the transparent shell lay the twins, small chests rising almost too slowly to see. Around their necks hung a half-broken pendant, a tiny lattice of crystal strands spelling a single name. Kaelri. Back on Elethis, Kaelri traced the pendant's empty chain around her own neck. She wore half of the lattice, twin to the one on her children. The healers often said these pendants helped reunite families lost in war, but that comfort now felt hollow. She looked at the two pillars once more. The rain had eased, leaving only soft drops. The engraved names pulsed with gentle light as if breathing on their own. A quiet step sounded behind her. Elder Serath, his robe lined with healer's white, stood with a hood raised. "The shuttle is ready, daughter," he said, voice calm. "The council still requires your skill at the northern encampment." Kelry wiped rain from her brow. Duty remained, even when hope did not. She bowed to the graves, turned, and walked toward the waiting flyer, the hem of her cloak trailing a line in the mud that the wind quickly erased. As the flyer lifted, she felt the world fall away beneath her feet. The graves became two small lights among many on the plateau. She pressed a hand against the window. "Sleep, my stars," she whispered, believing her twins rested beyond reach. The flyer's engine hummed, carrying her toward another day of patching broken bodies while her own heart remained stitched only by habit and resolve. Across the void, Captain Holt watched medical scans settle into stable readings. The twins would live if they received care soon. He knew little about Zeran culture, but the pendant told him enough. A mother somewhere believed her children gone. He looked out at the silent wreckage field, then at the stars stretching toward Elethis. "We're bringing them home," he said to no one in particular. The storm on Elethis faded that evening and clear light poured through gaps in the clouds, shining on the crystal pillars. For a moment, each pillar refracted the sunset and sent small beams of color into the sky. Blue, violet, green, little sparks that danced like children playing in open air. Kelry did not see the lights, but if she had, she might have felt a warmth softer than grief, a whisper that somewhere, somehow, a different story had begun. High above, silent satellites logged the clearing skies but missed the small Terran ship turning toward Elethis. Reports would note weather bands and debris counts, nothing more. Yet in the blank space between lines, a quiet truth waited. Mercy can travel, faster than any weapon born of fear across the endless cold void. The cryopod door opened with a slow hiss inside the medical bay of the dauntless Mercy. White steam rolled out, swirling across the floor. Two small figures lay inside the pod, wrapped in pale blue thermal blankets. Their faces were still and pale but peaceful, like they had simply fallen asleep on a cold night. Captain Jared Holt stood near the wall, arms crossed, watching the human and alien doctors work. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Every few seconds he looked at the heart rate monitor. Two soft beeps, almost like whispers, echoed through the room. One for each child. "Vitals are holding steady," said Dr. Amelia Griggs, her voice quiet but firm. "Both suffered mild oxygen deprivation and cryoshock, but brain activity is normal. They're lucky." "They're more than lucky," Jared replied. "They're alive," Dr. Griggs smiled briefly. "They'll wake soon, maybe in a few hours. But they don't know where they are or who we are. That could be hard for them." Jared nodded. "Let me know when they wake. We'll be careful." He stepped out of the medical bay, the door closing behind him with a soft click. In the hallway, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Ross, waited with a tablet in hand. "We finished scanning the cryopod logs," Ross said. "It was marked for the Elethis Orbital Refugee Fleet. Last listed commander, Kelry Venn, Zeran Medical. Officer, looks like she was the mother. Is she alive? Last intel says yes, she's still on Elethis, working in a medical relief zone, but..." Ross hesitated. "There's a problem." Jared raised an eyebrow. "If we contact her directly, we break protocol. And if we try to land on Elethis without permission, the Zeran Guard could see it as a threat. Diplomatic relations are already shaky after the Varn Dominion attack." Jared looked out the small window nearby. The stars outside glittered cold and distant. He had seen wars, seen entire planets vanish under firestorms, but he had also seen kindness. He believed in it. "These kids are hers," Jared said at last. "She thinks they're dead. We don't leave them like this." Ross nodded slowly. Then what's the plan? Quiet diplomacy. I know someone who might help. Inside the medbay, the twins stirred for the first time. Talien's fingers twitched, curling like small leaves. Her eyelids fluttered open, showing golden eyes that slowly focused on the ceiling lights. Beside her, Sorel made a small sound in his throat like a question that didn't have words yet. Dr. Griggs leaned closer, speaking gently. It's okay. You're safe. You're on a ship. You were asleep, but now you're awake. Talien stared at her silently. Sorel blinked slowly, then reached for something around his neck. His fingers found the pendant. The broken crystal lattice glowed faintly. They haven't spoken yet, Griggs told the nurse beside her. Trauma response. Might take time. But what the children didn't say, they showed. When they saw each other, they immediately reached out and held hands tightly. It was a bond stronger than fear. They looked small in the big room, but together they looked unbroken. Hours later, Jared stood inside the private communication chamber on Deck 3. A small hologram flickered to life. A Zaran man with narrow eyes wearing a diplomat's crest. Saris Val, Jared said with a nod. You still answering my calls? That's a surprise. The diplomat gave a dry smile. Captain Holt, it's been a while. If you're contacting me, it must be serious. I found something, or rather, someone, Jared replied. 2 Zaran, children from the XS-27 shuttle. We picked up their cryopod in a debris field. They're alive. Saris Val's smile faded instantly. That shuttle was declared lost. No survivors. I know. But someone was wrong. I need your help to return them quietly. Their mother is Kael'ri Ven. Saris rubbed his chin, thinking. She's respected. If this news reaches her, she'll want them back immediately. But this will be delicate. Ilithis isn't exactly welcoming Terran ships right now. Jared leaned forward. This isn't about politics. It's about a mother who buried her children while they were still breathing. Saris nodded slowly. I'll arrange something. A private moon base on the edge of Ilithis orbit. Neutral ground. Give me 2 days. I'll be there. On Ilithis, Kael'ri worked long hours in the medical tents near the northern marshlands. The wounded kept coming. Burn victims, soldiers with broken bones, farmers with shrapnel still in their skin. Her hands moved like a river. Calm, practiced, tireless. But inside, she was numb. She moved like someone stuck between 2 lives. The one she lost, and the one that kept going. When the message came, she was preparing herbal compresses. A tall courier handed her a sealed note. She opened it with slow fingers. Kael'ri Ven. There is something you must see. Come to Observation Base Lyra 5. You will not be harmed. This is not a trap. Bring no guards. Only truth. SV. Her hands trembled as she folded the paper. The initials, SV. She remembered Saris Val, the Zaran diplomat who once worked with humans. But why now? And what did he mean by something you must see? Her heart beat faster. She thought of the graves, the flower crests, the silence. A small hope, so small it almost hurt, bloomed in her chest. She packed quickly. 2 days later, on a small moon circling Ilithis, the dauntless Mercy hovered quietly near the surface. Inside the ship, the twins sat side by side, watching the door. They didn't speak much, but they had begun to smile. Slowly, carefully, Captain Holt checked his watch. She should be here soon. The ship door opened. A Zaran woman stepped inside. Her robe was simple and her steps were steady, but her eyes moved like storms. Kael'ri's gaze swept the room. When she saw the twins, she froze. Talien stood first. Then Sorel. Both moved toward her slowly, uncertain. Kael'ri took one trembling step forward. Sorel? She whispered. Talien? They stared. Then, in a single heartbeat, the pendant around Sorel's neck lit up. Kael'ri pulled her own half from under her robe. The 2 halves pulsed, 2 heartbeats finding each other, and then the children ran. Kael'ri fell to her knees as they crashed into her arms. Tears rolled down her face freely, no longer held back by training or sorrow. She held them tightly as if afraid they would vanish again. Behind them, Jared turned away, giving them privacy. Ross stood beside him, arms folded. "You did good," Ross said quietly. Jared didn't reply. He just watched the stars outside the window, wondering how many more lives drifted in the dark, waiting to be found. Mercy, he believed, was not a weakness. It was the strongest force in the galaxy. Quiet, patient, and very human. The stars above the small moon base shimmered quietly, unaware of the storm building between two great empires. Inside the walls of the base, Kaelri sat with her children in a quiet room filled with soft lights and warm blankets. Talion had fallen, asleep, curled up beside her mother. Sorel sat awake holding a small cup of warm broth with both hands. His golden eyes kept looking up at Kaelri, as if checking to see if she was still real. Kaelri gently brushed his hair back and smiled, though her eyes were tired. "I missed you so much," she whispered. Sorel finally spoke, his voice small. "We waited. The ship was dark, cold." Kaelri pulled him into a hug, holding back tears. "You were brave. Both of you." Outside the room, Captain Jared Holt stood near a round table with his crew and Saris Val. The Ziran diplomat leaned forward, his voice low and serious. "Now that she has her children, we must think carefully about what happens next." "What do you mean?" Jared asked. "Kaelri is important," Saras said. "She is not just a mother. She is also a healer respected across Elethis. If word spreads that a human ship saved her children, it could change how people see your kind." Lieutenant Ross leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Isn't that a good thing?" Saris nodded slowly. "It could be, but the Varn Dominion is watching closely. They may not want peace to grow between humans and Zirans. They may act to stop it." Jared looked at the closed door behind him, where Kaelri sat with her twins. "So what do we do?" Saris spoke carefully. "Let me talk to the council. I can tell them the truth. Not the full military files, but enough to show that you acted with mercy." Jared shook his head. "They deserve the full story. We didn't do this for praise. We did it because they were children." "That is exactly why it matters," Saris replied. "Because you didn't have to." Later that evening, Kaelri stepped into the meeting room where Jared waited alone. She wore a simple white robe, her healer's color. Her expression was calm, but her voice held quiet strength. "I don't know how to thank you, Captain Holt," she said. "You already have," Jared replied with a small smile. "They're safe, that's enough." Kaelri looked down. "I buried empty graves. I sat in the rain and whispered their names, believing they were gone." She paused. "Why did you help them?" Jared shrugged lightly. "Because they were there. Because I would want someone to do the same for my family. We're not enemies, Kaelri, not really, just lost in the noise." She studied him for a long moment. "Do you think peace is possible?" "I think it starts with small things," he said. "Saving a life, returning a child, telling the truth, even when it's hard." Kaelri nodded slowly. "Then I will do my part. When I return to Elethis, I'll speak to the council myself." Jared smiled. "You're brave," she smiled back. "I'm a mother." Meanwhile, far above, a sleek Varn Dominion scout ship drifted through the shadows of Elethis' third moon. Inside, Commander Drell Kor stared at a hologram showing the dauntless Mercy docked at the neutral base. "Confirmed," his officer said. "The human ship is there, and the Ziran healer, Kaelri Ven, has joined them." Commander Kor's eyes narrowed. Those children were supposed to be gone. The story of their death was useful. If the truth spreads, it will damage our control, the officer finished, and raise questions. Kor stood straight. "We cannot allow that. Prepare a strike team. No major damage. Quick, clean. Make it look like an accident. A failed station system or a fuel leak. But ensure the message is silenced." Back on the neutral moon base, Jared's ship prepared for quiet departure. Supplies were loaded, medical scans finished, and travel logs updated. The plan was to bring Kelry and her twins back to Elethis under Zoran escort, arranged by Saras. But the quiet didn't last. Just before dawn, the base's alarm sounded. Red lights flashed. Jared and Ross rushed to the control room. The technician on duty looked pale. "We're under cyber attack. Systems are being overridden. Oxygen vents, shielding, and fuel storage." "From where?" Jared demanded. "External. Source unknown ship, stealth profile, likely Varn tech." Jared cursed under his breath. "They're trying to kill her quietly, make it look like a system failure." Ross was already moving. "I'll secure the medbay. We get her and the kids out now." In the hallway, Kelry heard the alarms. She scooped up Tallien and grabbed Sorel's hand. Her heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "We're going with the captain. Stay close. No matter what." The yow. Base shook as emergency systems kicked in. Backup lights turned the corridors into long lines of red and shadow. Jared met them halfway, guiding them toward the ship. "Keep moving," he said. "They're trying to erase this whole base. Make sure no one tells the truth." Kelry's grip on her children tightened. "Then we must survive." The Dauntless Mercy launched from the base, just as part of the moon facility exploded behind it. Fire and smoke spilled into space. Inside the ship, the twins clung to Kelry. Jared sat in the captain's seat, eyes focused. "Any pursuit?" he asked. Ross checked the screen. The Varn ship vanished. Just a hit and run. But they'll try again. Jared turned to Kelry. "We're heading to Elethis now. I'll stay until you're safely with your people." She nodded, voice firm. "And then we speak. The truth must be heard." Outside the ship, space was quiet again. But inside, something had changed. No longer just a rescue. No longer just an act of kindness. Now it was a fight for truth and peace. And Kelry, once just a healer and mother, now stood at the center of it all. The planet Elethis looked peaceful from space, covered in soft blue clouds, green forests, and shining rivers. But Captain Jared Holt knew peace could be a mask. Somewhere below, governments whispered, enemies watched, and danger waited for the right moment to strike. Inside the Dauntless Mercy, Kelry stood beside her children at the observation window. Tallien pressed her face to the glass while Sorel clutched his mother's hand. Their eyes were wide as they saw their homeworld again after so many dark, cold days in space. "We're almost there," Kelry said softly. Jared entered the room, with Saras Val beside him. The Siran diplomat wore a fresh robe marked with silver lines of authority. His face was calm, but his eyes were focused. "I've spoken to the Elethis Council," Saras said. "They agreed to a quiet landing in the Highland District. A private chamber has been arranged for your statement. Only trusted leaders will be there." Kelry nodded. "That's enough. I don't want attention, I want truth." Jared looked at her closely. "They might not believe you at first. The Varn still control many voices in your media. If they think your story is dangerous, they'll try to stop it." Kelry took a deep breath. "Then I will speak louder." The shuttle descended through Elethis' upper clouds. A soft hum filled the air as it passed over deep valleys and glowing lakes. Kelry watched the land shift beneath them. Somewhere, near the western ridges, stood the graves she had once wept beside. They weren't graves anymore. The shuttle landed on a circular pad surrounded by white towers. Guards in Zoran armor stood silently at the edge, weapons lowered. A senior counselor named Mevran approached the group flanked by aides. He greeted Kelry with a formal bow, then turned to the children. "We had given up hope," he said, voice low. "It is a blessing to see them again." Kelry didn't smile. They were not saved by luck, they were saved by humans. Mevran's expression didn't change, but the corner of his mouth tightened. "Come inside. Let us hear the full story." Inside the council chamber, the lights were dim. A wide crystal table stood in the center, glowing softly beneath everyone's hands. Only a few trusted voices were present: counselors, senior diplomats, and 2 science officers. Saras Val and Captain Holt stood together near the side, watching in silence. Kellery began slowly, standing tall despite her exhaustion. You all know the message I received, the one that said my children were gone. I believed it. I mourned them. I laid flowers for them. But I was wrong. We were all wrong. She paused, letting the room absorb her words. They were taken by the blast, yes, but their cryopod was not destroyed. It drifted into the outer system, and there they were found by a Terran ship, the Dauntless Mercy, under Captain Jared. Holt, a counselor, frowned. And you expect us to believe this was a kind act? A rescue? Not part of a secret plan? Jared stepped forward, his voice steady. We don't run secret plans involving children. We saw life signs in a wrecked pod. We pulled them aboard. That's all. No tricks. Just mercy. Another counselor asked, Then why didn't you return them at once? Sarah spoke next. Because if they had, they would have been shot down. You know the current climate. A human vessel entering Elethis airspace without clearance is seen as a threat. That's why I helped arrange a meeting on neutral ground. Kellery's voice grew stronger. And while we were there, a Varn strike nearly destroyed the entire base. They tried to kill me and my children, to erase the truth. That is why I came here. To speak it before someone silences it forever. A heavy silence followed. No one moved. Then Mevrin leaned back in his chair. We will need evidence. Jared handed over a data chip. Medical logs, pod scans, recovery footage. You'll see the pendant around Sorrel's neck matching the one Kellery still wears. This isn't a story, it's proof. While the council reviewed the files, Kellery took her children to a quiet garden near the chamber. The twins walked slowly beside her, looking at the familiar flowers and trees. A gentle wind carried the scent of orange blossoms. I remember this place, Tallien said softly. You used to bring us here. Kellery knelt and opened her arms. The children rushed into them. Yes. And now we're here again, together. She held them close, letting herself breathe for the first time in days. Back in the chamber, arguments had already begun. Some counselors believed Kellery. Others feared the truth would cause unrest. A few wanted to thank the humans. One even suggested covering up the whole event to avoid war with the Varn Dominion. Saras Val stood up sharply. Covering it up will not protect us. The Varn already know. They attacked the base because of it. You think they'll stop if we stay silent? Jared added. They don't fear silence. They count on it. Finally, Mevrin raised a hand. We will not hide this. I will speak publicly. The healer Kellery's truth must be told. The next morning, across Elethis, a message was broadcast through every public channel. The council's symbol appeared on every screen, followed by Mevrin's calm face. Fellow citizens of Elethis, today we share with you a truth that shines brighter than lies. 2 Zarin children long believed dead were saved not by our own, but by those we call outsiders. A Terran ship acting without reward or political gain returned them to us. He stepped aside as Kellery appeared beside him. Her children stood quietly at her side. I mourned when I thought they were gone, she said. But now I rejoice, not only because they are alive, but because I learned that kindness still lives among the stars. The message ended. Across cities and villages, people watched in silence. Then slowly, in homes and schools and markets, conversations began to change. Humans weren't just warriors or strangers. They could be heroes too. Back aboard the Dauntless Mercy, Jared prepared his ship for departure. The crew worked quietly, each person moved by what they had witnessed. Kellery arrived at the docking ramp with her children. You could stay, she said. Jared smiled. Not my place. There are more lost voices out there. Someone has to listen. Tallien hugged him. Thank you, Captain. Sorrel looked up at him and said, You brought us home. Jared gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. It's what any person should do. Kellery watched the ship rise into the sky, her heart full, not just of love, but of something greater, hope, and high above, where silence once ruled, the truth now echoed across the stars. The winds across the high plateau of Elethis carried a new sound, Laughter. Where once Kael'ri had knelt in rain and grief, now bright banners fluttered in morning light. Hundreds of citizens stood among the crystal grave markers, but they were not mourning. They had come to celebrate life and peace. A small stage of polished stone had been built beside the twin pillars that once marked empty graves. The pillars remained, but new lines of script glowed upon them. Returned by mercy, witness to hope. Above the stage, holoscreens showed images of children playing, humans and Xerans working side by side, and a single Terran ship slipping quietly into the stars. Kael'ri stepped forward, dressed in healer white trimmed with blue. Talion and Sorel held her hands, their eyes shining. The crowd hushed. Every network on Elethis streamed the moment. Even distant outposts on other moons listened. "My friends," Kael'ri began, voice ringing clear, "I stand where I once believed my children lay forever. I cried here. I thought the universe had no kindness left. But I was wrong. A human ship found my twins in the dark and chose to save them. They asked for no reward, they simply answered a call of the heart." She paused, letting the words sink in. Across the crowd, heads nodded, some wiped quiet tears. "When we choose mercy," she continued, "we choose a future larger than fear. We honor the children who might one day heal worlds we have not yet seen. Today I offer thanks to Captain Jared Holt and the crew of the Dauntless Mercy. Though they have already left our skies, their gift remains with us in these small hands I hold." Talion lifted her pendant half, now reforged into a complete lattice. Sorel mirrored her. The two halves clicked together, glowing bright blue. The crowd burst into gentle applause that rolled across the plateau like warm thunder. Counselor Mevrin stepped forward next. "By order of the Elethis Council," he declared, "Kael'ri Ven is granted the title She Who Walks with Stars for uniting peoples through truth. Let her path guide ours." He produced a slim silver circlet engraved with the nebula emblem of unity. Kael'ri bent slightly and he placed it upon her brow. The twins clapped first. The crowd followed. Night fell, and lanterns lit the plateau. Families shared food, swapping stories of kindness. Terran engineers who had repaired Xeran irrigation pumps, Xeran doctors who had treated human miners. Old suspicions softened under lantern glow. But far above, aboard a hidden Varn cruiser, Commander Drelkor watched the broadcast with growing anger. His earlier attempt to silence Kael'ri had failed. Worse, the story of Terran mercy now spread across two civilizations. His orders were clear. Sow distrust, keep rivals divided. Unity threatened Varn control. Prepare a message drone. He snapped to his aide. We will leak forged evidence, claim the humans staged the rescue to gain favor, that Kael'ri is their puppet. Release it on every back channel we have. The aide hesitated. Sir, after today's celebration, the citizens may not believe. They will believe if we give them fear. Kor hissed. The drone launched into the night. 3 days later, the forged reports surfaced on fringe news streams. Fake audio of human officers speaking of manipulating the Xerans, doctored images of Kael'ri boarding a human warship, claims that the children were never in danger at all. Social networks lit with worry. Some citizens who had begun to trust humans felt their hope wobble. Kael'ri was in the children's recovery ward when Saras Val hurried in, face pale. A smear campaign, he said. It smells of Varn editing. We can trace parts of the data, but the rumor is spreading faster than proof. Kael'ri pressed a calming hand on Talion's shoulder and rose. Then we meet rumor with light. Call Mevrin, call the council. And... She paused, taking a steady breath. Call Captain Holt. I know he wished to stay away from politics, but truth needs witnesses. Far out beyond the asteroid belt, the dauntless Mercy answered the call. Jared listened to the urgent message, then regarded his crew. We flew to save 2 lives, he said quietly. Now we may have to save the story of those lives. Ross grinned. Another rescue mission, then. The Terran ship altered course. 40 hours later, it entered Elethis orbit again, this time announced by Council Beacon. No defensive batteries fired. Instead, escort drones guided it to the capital skydock, where crowds gathered in uneasy silence. Kailri waited at the dock's central platform. Holo projectors surrounded the area, broadcasting live. Counselor Mevrin, Saris Val, and several independent media investigators stood ready with data tablets. The dauntless Mercy settled with a calming hum. Its ramp lowered, and Jared walked down alone, unarmed, hands visible. Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. Kailri stepped forward. They clasped forearms in greeting, Zoran and Terran style combined. Cameras flashed. Jared faced the crowd. "I hear there are questions," he said. His voice carried through directional speakers. "I will answer all of them. Ship logs are open. Communications, medical scans, rescue footage, everything. Nothing hidden." He nodded to Ross, who transmitted the entire raw ship database to independent investigators chosen by both human and Ziran channels. Massive holo windows displayed scrolling logs, timestamps, cryopod diagnostics, still images of the twins in stasis. Kailri's tearful reunion, the Varn strike. An investigator raised a hand. "Captain, the leaked report claims you staged this event. How do you respond?" Jared met the camera lens as if looking each viewer in the eye. "You have our records. Compare them with the forged files. Truth leaves a clearer path than lies." Second investigator spoke. "What was your motive?" "I didn't need one," Jared replied. "We saw children in danger. That was enough." The twins appeared on the platform then, guided by medical staff. Sorel held a small projector. He pressed a button, and a hologram of the cryopod flickered above the crowd. His own small voice, recorded weeks earlier in the medbay, played. "Dark. Cold. Where is Mother?" Gasps rippled through listeners. The raw fear of a child cut sharper than forged politics. Kailri stepped beside her son. "These memories are not staged," she said softly. "This is pain turned into hope." "Counselor." Mevrin addressed the public feed. "Our tech teams confirm the leaked report contains mismatched metadata, inconsistent shadows, and reused Varn broadcast headers. It is a fraud. Those who spread it attacked not just humans, but truth itself." Across holo screens, comparison, images highlighted differences. Genuine ship logs versus tampered files. Fact triumphed over rumor. In the hidden Varn cruiser, Commander Kor received the news. His forged narrative was crumbling. Worse, joint Ziran-Terran analysts now tracked the origin of the fake data trail. Alarms rang. The commander slammed a fist on the console. "Prepare jump engines," he barked. "We leave before they trace us." But it was too late. A multi-species patrol frigate emerged from hyperspace, blocking the cruiser's escape route. Its captain, human-born and Ziran-trained, hailed the Varn ship under a joint banner of peace enforcement. Faced with united strength, Kor's crew surrendered without a shot. The capture became headline news, sealing the collapse of Varn propaganda. Public approval for Ziran-Terran cooperation soared. For the first time in decades, joint diplomatic talks announced open borders for humanitarian aid. Weeks later, a quiet ceremony took place in the garden by the crystal pillars. Only a few attended: Kailri, her children, Saris Val, Counselor Mevrin, and Jared with 2 crew members. They gathered to plant a young starwood tree between the twin markers. Its leaves shimmered silver in sunlight. Kailri handed Jared a small spade. "Will you place the first soil?" she asked. Jared chuckled. "I'm better at lifting people than gardening." "Today," she smiled, "they are the same." He scooped fresh earth over the sapling's roots. The twins added water, their pendants glimmering. Kailri spoke a healer's blessing in soft Ziran and translated in basic Terran tongue. "Grow strong. Give shade to all who seek rest, no matter their world." The little tree swayed, catching a breeze that carried the scent of new beginnings. Later, as sunset painted the sky gold, Jared prepared to leave again. Kailri walked with him to the landing pad. "Your people offered me an honorary title," he told her. "Starborn Guardian. I can't accept." She tilted her head. "Why?" "I didn't act alone," he said. Mercy belongs to everyone. Who chooses it? Keep the title for those who do the same after us. Kael'ri considered, then nodded. Very well, but you will always be welcome here, guardian or not. Talene rushed forward and pressed a small bead into Jared's hand, a clear crystal with 2 intertwining blue threads. It's for safe travel, she said. Sorel saluted in playful imitation of Terran cadets. Jared laughed, saluted back, and closed his fist around the gift. The dauntless Mercy lifted into the sky, its engines a gentle roar fading into the evening. People below watched until it became another star among countless others. Kael'ri stood long after the lights disappeared. Beside her, the starwood tree rustled. She felt grief's old shadow, yet it no longer chilled her. In its place grew steady warmth, a belief that kindness once shown multiplies. On distant worlds, news of the United Stand spread. Teams of mixed crews signed up for relief missions. Children in schools learned new words from each other's languages. The phrase dauntless mercy entered common speech, meaning help given without demand. And somewhere beyond known charts, a Terran captain set course toward unknown distress beacons, a clear crystal bead swinging from the cockpit console, silent, promise that hope can travel faster than fear. On Elethis, under a sky newly